This is Race Hobbs, head of programming over at the UNX Network, and I want to thank you for listening to my good friend, Jeff Kingsbury, on Strange Recon, right here on the X.
Sometimes I'll start a sentence, and I don't even know where it's going. I just hope I find it along the way.
You know that new sound you're looking for? Well, listen to this.
Sign my name on the dotted line.
Sign my name on the dotted line.
All I do is a double time.
All I do is a double time.
Oh, I can't believe you've done this.
Get ready for a surprise.
What's going on X Network? It's yours truly here for another episode of Strange Recon Radio. This is Jeff Whitebear Kingsbury, Turd Ferguson, Kitchener Leslie, Uncle Hector, here to tell you another tale. So gather around the campfire or the fireplace. We're going to be talking about space planes. That's right, because the rockets you traditionally see getting things into space weren't always the idea, and it's very possible that they've been in action in private corporation or other space agencies for years, and a mutual secret could be kept between adversaries, if you will. And we're going to talk about that and some more. Before we start, remember everyone, do me a massive favor. If you like what you're seeing here over here at the UNX Network, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, leave that positive review over on Spreaker or wherever else you're listening, Spotify, and whatever the hell, I don't know. Anyways, also, before we start, Travis Taylor, you absolutely suck. All right, let's... Welcome to Strange Recon.
I'm here to discuss the so-called flying saucers.
You're out of your mind.
There's nothing more than a weather observation balloon. Of course, which we both knew differently.
No, I saw that. I don't give a goddamn what anybody else says about it. I saw that on film. Phil Class can kiss my ass. He wasn't there. I was.
When you know all the names in every language of that bird, you know nothing, but absolutely nothing about the bird.
You're crazy. You're crazy. I like you, but you're crazy.
All right, my friends and weirdos, let's get back into it. As I said, this is Jeff Whitebear Kingsbury. Welcome to another episode. Travis Taylor is on the internet telling people that drones can only fly in the air for 10 to 15 minutes. This is a guy that was a government consultant for the UAPTF, the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force. This guy says that drones fly for 10 minutes. This is one of the lead investigators on Skinwalker Ranch dressing television show. You know, old Rocky Raccoon ready to take on the aliens. Let me say that one more time for everyone out there in the UNX Network and Recon who's followed me over here, just so we all hear it. Travis Taylor, recently interviewed with the Black Vault, has suggested that drones can only fly for 10 to 15 minutes. I'll say it again before I get the show going, and I'm sorry for the controversy, but this is Jeff Whitebear Kingsbury and Strange Recon's opinion, and no one else is certainly not of the UNX Network. But Travis Taylor, you absolutely suck. All right, anyways, moving on. Let's get the show going, folks. We're here to talk about space planes and why... if we don't do our due diligence, once again, we'll be looking at something nuts and bolts like, or rather ridiculous looking, and it be something we've created and we just didn't know about it. So, of course, we'll misidentify it. So it's our job here, Recon, to go back into the stanky annals of history and find some information that might make things a little more clear. So first things first, my friends, first things first. We are going to jump back in a little history. For that, we have to get familiar with a little date and little history. Actually, before we do that, why don't we just say the definition of a space plane, just in case anyone else is wondering. A space plane is a vehicle that can fly and glide like an aircraft in Earth's atmosphere and maneuver like a spacecraft in outer space. To do so, space planes must incorporate features of both aircraft and spacecraft. Orbital space planes tend to be more similar to conventional spacecraft, while suborbital space planes tend to be more similar to fixed wing aircraft. All space planes to date have been rocket powered, but then landed as unpowered gliders, as you hear quite a bit recently with the Chinese allegedly have leapfrogged us. Of course, that's absolutely ridiculous and nonsensical. But so first things first, let's address the a space plane time frame. Or speed time frame. A space plane is hypersonic. The development of hypersonic aircraft goes all the way back to the Nazis and our friend Werner von Braun, everyone's favorite Nazi. And in what he had to say and do quite a bit in his work with a man named Eugene Sanger from Sanger Aerospace, I believe it was, or Sanger Aircraft. I'm not sure their name officially, but they were part of Operation Paperclip and a whole larger whole. Anyway, so four types of space planes, and we'll get into a couple dates after this, but the four types of space planes have successfully launched to orbit, re-entered Earth's atmosphere, and landed. The U.S. Space Shuttle, Russian Buran, the U.S. X-37, and the Chinese CSSHQ, another Dream Chaser model. We're going to talk about other things, but is under development in the U.S. as of 2019. All past, current, and planned orbital vehicles launch vertically on a separate rocket. Orbital space flight takes place at high velocities with orbital kinetic energies typically at least 50 times greater than suborbital trajectories. Consequently, heavy heating shielding is required. No kidding. Thermodynamics during re-entry, as the kinetic energy is shed in the form of heat. Many more space planes have been proposed, but none have reached flight status. But I just that's referenced off of NASA's X-37 development thing called Spin 96. I have the PDF available if anyone wants to see it. But Spin 96 suggests that there was like no other stuff made or developed or whatever. And it's very, context manipulating, as you know. All you people out there, if you follow Recon already or other UFO channels that dig into the military history, you know that the story that NASA would portray of the history of hypersonic or space planes or things like that, it's pretty rough. So first things first, let's just quickly let's just jump down real fast before we talk about Sanger's designs. As you probably know, the first alleged human space flight, we used to call it manned space flight, but apparently now that's offensive. Someone in a purple hair and glasses will show up and never mind. Oh, whoa. 2 April 1961. You know him as Yuri Gagarin. Gagarin was his name. He was actually one of those people that could control dragons with his mind over there. And never mind, that was stupid. But Yuri Gagarin, a Soviet citizen, he was the first person in space. Now, because we're so awesome and powerful and have a military budget mixed with our scientific budget, we are insanely empirical. We forget that the Soviets actually beat us into space, beat us to moons, beat us to satellites in space, a bunch of things. They landed, took pictures of things up close. I mean, they kicked our ass. Of course, then we started catching up and we just took off and never looked back. But there are strange things that could be noted, anecdotally speaking. But as you know, just a short time later on Alan Shepard. I mean, he did it just, what was it? I don't even have a date down. I feel like an idiot. I'm pretty sure it's May 5th. If I'm going off my memory here, but I'm probably wrong about that, and correct me if I am, but I feel really stupid for not really remember. But he did travel in space as the first American, and then he did walk on the moon, that's for sure, in 1971. But let's go back real fast now and talk about a guy named Eugene Sanger, who people seem to forget about, because no offense to our ufologist friends, and everyone has a shot in the dark, but a lot of ufologists missed, and I'm going to say it because I know it to be true. The Nazi bell. You've heard of the Nazi bell, right? And I know people that know Recon know where I'm going with this one. 1934, the secret Nazi bell. You see, in ufology, the Nazi bell is some sort of anti-gravity time machine, Die Glocke, no, whatever the hell they call it. But the fact of the matter is that the Nazi bell was far more remarkable than we wanted to give it credit. So we had it was remarkable, but it wasn't like what we wanted in the truth of like Nazi technology. It was a guy that understood that since, okay, well, we're launching stuff into space and space is cold. We know that now. What can I do? This guy developed cryogenic fuels that were liquid, mixed his liquid propellants together, and they mixed it together by going around the engine bell. Okay, and the silver bird, silver bug, silverfish was a proposed bomber that could skip around the entire planet. They recognized that these high atmospheric bombers could make it around the world really quickly, And just to give you a design, what the hell they look like. And this guy, quickly, here's 3 photos real fast. Sorry, Race, I know you don't want to. Hold on one second. We pull these up here. Here's a picture of Sanger himself, his and his designs. Hold on one second. Okay, first one is the silverfish. Let's look at these together. I mean, all the people that follow me over from Recon know this might be some repeat information. Race, here's one. Here's one thing we would like to show here. That's the silverfish, the silver bug, the silver bird. You've heard the name before over the years, but it was designed in 1934. 1934 on aircraft meant to be launched from a rocket into space, fly around the planet, re-enter space as a glider, get a right vector on where it wants to go, hit its boosters, and start skipping. The premise of what they were figuring out in theoretics back then, and with their wind tunnel tests and vacuum wind tunnel tests, is exactly what's being used today when you see Elon's company launch stuff up there, and I'll get into that. But this is the silverfish or whatever. Here is Sanger himself. Eugene Sanger died, I believe, in 1970. Was a part of Operation Paperclip. Was a man who was way ahead of his time when it came to rocket work and understanding how to utilize the atmosphere, how to get high up in the atmosphere and then circle the Earth, how to do so with propellants that we couldn't do the first time. Space is cold, but also it's still the concept of cryogenics. You've heard it before in sci-fi, like cryogenically freeze a person or something, all the way to cryogenic fuel. It's the same concept. It's a way to operate or maintain something in sub-freezing temperatures, maintain a human body, maintain a fuel system. Like how do you plan on operating a rocket in the vacuum of space where there's no oxygen, with your solid, there was a lot of problems they had to overcome, and this guy was just revolutionary. He was a Nazi, and it was in 1934. We're talking about years before Roswell and all this other stuff, before we start to say that we couldn't do any of these things. Okay, so you saw the guy's original design in this part right here. Believe it or not, you can't see it in this very crude little toy design. Is actually the famous Nazi bell. And the Chinese have just started using the same design, by the way. It was like, oh, they're revolutionary. Hypersonic weapons are dangerous. Literally, the Chinese are just using this now. But this thing right here actually was the bell of the engine bell. The big thing you see like on NASA rockets, the big, huge engine bell. Well, that's what that was. And inside this was little tubes that would circle around and go around and cool the engine, doing something that could have been done. So once it's leaving the Earth's atmosphere, it's cooling it. And as it gets outside of Earth's atmosphere, it's got cryogenic ready fuel. That's insane. That's an insanely early premise. That's why people thought they had they must be dealing with freaking aliens, because how the hell could they be coming up with this stuff? I put it to you, and I've showed it on Recon multiple times in the past. Since the German Civil War, in the industrial world, they had a very different take on it. They had a very different take on industrialization. They really hammered it and did well. And you could see it in their basic lowest economy people design, as in like the car that everyone can get. Anyways, this is one of the last designs he came up with. Okay. So this is a guy that was creating bombers in 1934, right? This is the last design he came up with. Holy shit! Oh boy, oh boy. Well, you know, Sanger was a visionary, and as I'll show you soon, this is basically the everyday vehicle, including literally hypersonic commercial airline flights. Will be 30 people per airline per flight in the beginning, but the Chinese just released a picture like, our new design, we're gonna wipe those bloated pumpkins off the planet over there. And like they're showing designs of aircraft that we were turning. This is all part of the shuttle development program. Sanger found a second for the last 10 years of his life. Eugene Sanger in his original crazy awesome futuristic design suddenly found a home because space planes and the future of space planes development, because we heard the Russians are doing it as well, which I'm going to show you. The shuttle program, the idea of the shuttle thing came around. Before we even were walking on the moon, we were fully aware of our competition, and space planes were being developed before 1969. Before we even were talking about before we even had people on the moon officially, we were developing the shuttle that you saw fly to space a bunch of times. Now, I don't think this will cause a problem. This is from 1954, and it's it's a video of people on Recon have seen it, but it's a video of Werner von Braun, and Race. Could we play this? It should be fine.
To the engineer, spaceflight poses two problems. The first is, of course, to build a rocket ship. The second, and no less important, is to prepare and train the men who are to fly the future rocket ships and to provide suitable working conditions that will enable them to survive in space. To help show you what is being done to solve these problems, we have called upon one of the foremost exponents of space travel, Dr. Werner von Braun, who is at present the chief of the Guided Missile Division of the Army's Rocket Center at Redstone Arsenal. He was also overall director of the development of the original V-2 rocket.
Now here's a model of my design for a four-stage orbital rocket ship. Compared to the unmanned instrument rocket, it is quite large, but the overall size and weight of the rocket is mainly determined by the 11 tons weight of this top section. This weight dictates the amount of fuel and the numbers of motors needed to produce enough power to equalize the gravitational pull of the Earth. The payload in the top section will consist of 10 crew members plus equipment.
I'm going to pause for a second. We're not going to watch the whole video, but this is a video, if you're listening just on the audio side, a video of Werner von Braun talking about a space plane. This production was going on in 1954, and they released this story then. So this is 54. So Sanger is 34. This is 54. Now, I'm no mathematician or a wizard, but 34 seems like it's considerably earlier than 54. Anyways, Werner von Braun goes on to describe what happens here in the process of what goes on. Let me just show the phases in which he talks about real fast. Right here, I'll just show this.
Notice the wings, small rocket motor, and landing gears. This is a section that must ultimately return the men to the Earth safely. To produce the energy needed to hurl this stage into the orbit, we need these 3 additional rocket-powered sections.
Okay, so I'm going to stop there, but I'll just go right to the very end here, the last like 30 seconds of when he's talking, because what he describes here is exactly what's gone on in America, as like the step sibling or something that you got to take along with you type of thing, as in the scientific endeavor or the future of this type of thing. If it kind of goes along with the military theme of what's going on, we advance in that section. But he describes at the very end here the phases in which we've gone through and almost got to, but then our adversary, the Soviets, went away and we needed someone else to come back, which we can really look at what's going on today and really consider why we're seeing a lot of these things and FAA policies changing.
Without first following a step-by-step research and development program. Let's illustrate this with the help of a few pictures. First, we would design and build the 4th stage, and then tow it into the air to test it as a glider. This would also allow the crews to practice. Next, low-altitude flights would be made, firing the small rocket motor in the fourth stage. This would also give the crew more and more training. Following that, the third and second stages would be constructed and tested very thoroughly on the ground, after which they would be joined to the passenger section so that faster and longer flights could be made up to speeds of about 12,000 miles per hour. The only thing remaining would be the building and ground testing of the huge first stage. Then there would be no more test flights.
Well, a lot was learned in this in this thing here. There was Werner von Braun described something that ultimately would take place in the future space missions of both the Soviets and the United States. Heck, Goddard and all these other people were already developing multi-stage rockets. I'm forgetting a name right now. I feel like a dummy. But over in right there in Corona, New Mexico, right in that area, these guys were launching off huge rockets. What was it? Louis. Oh my God, Louis Elizondo. No, just kidding. Louis. I think it's Blanc. Maybe I can't remember his name. Louis D. Mablante. I'm forgetting. But anyways, there's a guy that was helping Goddard and everyone else produce rockets. And the guy was like 1935. He was wanting multi-stage rockets. We always give it to the Nazis, but we got to remember that a lot of other things were happening. They just were happening on a smaller scale and yada, yada, yada. Anyways, but so the story, though, ultimately speaking, sorry, I'm a little off here. Got to get realign here. The story, ultimately speaking, was that the idea of a space plane came around a lot earlier than we realized. A guy named Eugene Sanger had developed the concept, and it had been proven through the V2 series in development, everything that he had stated. We start to see a jump in UFO sightings, including the famous Kenneth Arnold sighting and the famous Phoenix pictures, not the Phoenix lights, but the Phoenix pictures. And then, of course, the world famous 1947 UFO crash at Corona, New Mexico, Roswell, in which nothing on Earth could do what happened here. But of course, we're developing those exact things. In fact, the photographs from Phoenix of the craft that people saw flying match the Omega and the Eugene Sanger design perfectly. Not the aircraft style, but the engine, how it flew, how far it could get, the entire concept of a space plane, the entire concept, what you see Starship doing today with Elon Musk. Anyways, all right, so we're jumping from that to in 1969, we walk in the moon, and suddenly we have our own president and other people saying we need to go commercial space, we need to go commercial flight supersonic, which kind of revigorated the idea that the military was going to be able to continuously advancing with hypersonic space planes while we're going high altitude supersonic. Let me just bring this up real quick here. And the space shuttle program in its early stages produced a whole number of awesome concept designs, including the one you just saw right there, Sanger, because of course he was working for the Americans eventually. But take a look at a series here, and you'll see that there's been a whole number of really cool, interesting designs that really are everything from wacky looking to badass, but they are ultimately speaking from a time that people forget we were doing all this, and this is just a few. Of course, these are just a few designs. Oh boy, where are my things here? Space shuttle. Lots of concept art. Pretty cool stuff, though. Ooh, shuttle. And of course, I'll show the CIA development and that real fast. Okay, here we go. Oh, son of a bee. 1 second, Recon. 1 second on X Network. I'm an idiot. Let me just pull this up real fast. It's taking me forever here because I keep having to select them all. But all right. Well, first things first. This is going to have to do this. We're talking specifically right now, just so everyone understands real fast, just before we go on here and show these photos. These are all aircraft that plan on literally, there was two options. You could launch them vertically or horizontally. As in, you can launch them from the ground like a traditional rocket you've seen, or take off into the troposphere by airplane and launch them off the back of it, which I described when I said what a space plane is in the beginning. So that's why you see a lot of these models the way they are. Okay, I'm about to get these up here. They're all very, very, very unique, but ultimately speaking, predictable. Because everyone at the time was using concept art relatively close to the same thing. Even our adversaries, which I found to be pretty interesting. All right. Can I open them all now? Okay. I think that worked that time. It did. All right. Let's go to early space shuttle designs. We're talking 1960. As you just saw, you saw the Sanger Silverfish a minute ago. We don't need a break here, Recon. We're powering right on through. Let's see here. Window. Okay, Race. There you go. See, here's some concept art of the early shuttle program. Multiple different options here, but as you see, it's very silverfish looking. And even in the concept art, this is just one of many. The act of what you see the Elon's SpaceX aircrafts doing is the exact same thing. They fall to Earth like a free diver. They don't worry about having to land on a runway at supersonic with like little to no flaps. And crazy stuff like the shuttle had to do. They were planning on doing others. Anyways, so here's one design. Multiple different versions, concept art. You see always on the back of a rocket. But what do you see here? You see another larger one-stage rocket with like another silverfish, silver bird looking thing on top of it. And the reason why that's considerable, it should be considered is that's a weapon system. We're looking at that as a some sort of human spacecraft with joysticks or whatever, but in this concept art. But ultimately speaking, that's the weapon system. When they're announcing, "Hey, how did China leapfrog us?" or whatever, we have concept of art of us doing it all these years ago, but we're pretending the Chinese can't do it today. Literally, look at this. You see this thing flying right here in the back corner here? That's what I'm talking about. We have the space plane design. We have the weapon system, which is just a modern day hypersonic looking weapon you'd see on the news today or some sort of defense blog. See if I can get all the way. There's one. Oh, there's the dinosaur, one of the earliest, and they actually made physical crafts. Allegedly it never flew, but this is this is where you start to have to get in a certain line here, because we know with a shadow of a doubt that multiple missions from both the Soviet side and the US side went on with absolutely no public, the public not knowing whatsoever. There was no awareness of the public. They were reported as scientific endeavors. I mean, there are endless Russian, exposed missions that were to launch satellites into space, newer and newer cameras. They were allegedly scientific stuff, but actually were just spying on the U.S. And when suddenly you start to see this term, a lot of ufologists that claim to be aviation experts love to use this term and love to say this thing never flew. Just like the Nazi rocket planes and stuff like that and early tailless designs. I found photos from the Smithsonian that shows them in American gun cameras. They clearly flew. And they weren't, these aren't gun cameras on American test ranges, though it wouldn't make a difference anyways. It doesn't matter. They flew. Anyway, so let's keep going on. I'm sorry, I keep doing that. Look at here's an early design, as you say. Look at that, United States. A lot of these companies, as all the big players, but some not. Some were rather small. You might not hear about today, like Teledyne, which are huge. You don't hear about it today because it's been owned by someone else. Lots of companies that produce things like this, but you're seeing pictures from the news being like, "Oh no, China's developed something we've never come up with before." Or you mean something we forgot we came up with? Is that what you're suggesting? Because we definitely came up with this stuff. Multiple designs, but obviously being recolored and rendered in modern day graphic designers and stuff. The concept of these things. Now, some of these things look rather typical rocket powered, yada, 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 maybe horizontal takeoff. You think that's kind of cool. Some of them are balloons. Hypersonic balloons. When you think of a dirigible, Everyone thinks, oh, the slow-moving Goodyear blimp. No, I can show you flat-out plans right now for them, not to mention the active players that are still making those balloons. I've communicated with them on Twitter. They're out there right now. Mr. Recon team knows Mr. Powell. The guy is a living raccoon. And the guy makes ascender ships. They thought he was responsible for the Phoenix Lights, but we don't want to pretend that it could be a human answer, because then that would take away the fun, which sucks, because I believe there's something paranormal going on, but not in these aspects. Not a lot of these things. This is the one of the original Lockheed Martin designs. As you see, Lockheed right there on the side. The skunk works on the tail there, but it was a wide body design. You're seeing that come around again. Pandolfi. But you'll see that that this shape returns again and again and again through multiple options they have, including new versions today. But ultimately, this became the X-37B that just returned to space. Biden's going over to talk to the Chinese leader. How about we get a spacecraft we've had in space for 908 days fly down and meet us down here right before we meet the guy? Let's have a runway full of B-2 Spirits and unveil the B-21 next month, or at the end of the week. Come on. Anyways, what do you know? One of the most common drone designs today, but again, design Pandolfi, Princess What's Her Nuts. Look at these things. I mean, we're seeing them today as being novel, radical new designs in drones, but they were once considered to be the future of the space plane program. Launching these planes at one stack like this was a real concept. You can find them right in plans on NASA. All right, I went the wrong way, I think. Let's go back this way. In fact, there's one of the Ascender airships right there. Imagine something getting to a high enough elevation that it can just hit on its, got there rather silently. All of a sudden, it just hits on the engines, boom, and goes. Space planes obviously have a long, long history. But again, this isn't just something I'm making up or designing myself. I'm pulling these off of places. There's a brilliant, awesome history and why they needed to do these things. We should talk about them real quick and just buzz right through. I'm sorry, you want to see a real dinosaur? That's the real dinosaur right there, sitting in a museum, the X-20. It never flew. These things never flew. We'd had nothing that could fly that fast in 1947. Yeah. Okay, anyways, this thing sat right on top of a rocket, as you just saw in the concept art a minute ago. It was a brilliant design, and it was radical, and it was in 100% in competition with the Russians to satisfy some of the bigger names out there, because this isn't like something that was just being observed by our secret militaries of the world. Even the president was calling for things like that. Even the president was flat out saying, we need to do this. In 1963, the president demanded basically that we bring hypersonic flight to our civilians and keep in competition with our adversaries. Well, what adversaries was he talking about? Everyone wants to quote JFK and talk about, aliens, and he's talking about getting rid of whatever. He's killed for wanting to talk about UFOs. Yeah, the UFOs, but of course, the technology seems to be humans. Here's quickly just a short little video of JFK talking for 1 quick second. It's like a very short video. Popular like JFK in Dallas. If we could play that video when we get a chance. There we go.
I'm announcing today that the United States will commit itself to an important new program in civilian aviation. It is my judgment that this government should immediately commence a new program in partnership with private industry to develop at the earliest practical date the prototype of a commercially successful supersonic transport superior to that being built in any other country of the world.
And we never got those transports, did we? When they did come around, they were too loud, and the FAA and Federal Transport Administration, blah, 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 committee, Congress said, you can't get those. Only we're allowed to fly fast. You have to sit on the JetBlue airline and take all effing day to get somewhere, sweating it out with a person that's literally on your lap. Anyways, so together the shuttle mission came around, and NASA and JFK and all these other people thought, you know what, this would be a great way to bring our cosmonaut brothers together. No one in the CIA or the KGB believed that. But anyways, they thought, hey, you know, it'd be a good idea that us and the Soviets get together, a new operational space applications to improve the quality of life on Earth. Together we can achieve that, they said. Provocative enhancement of our national security. So, of course, we can't talk about it aloud. We can't sit there every single day being like, we're developing space planes and putting them in space. We can leave the Earth's atmosphere, go over Russia in about 12 minutes and be dropping bombs in their head relatively easily, and they can't stop us. No, you can't say that. Low-cost, flexible, long-lived, highly reliable operational space systems and development of our neighbors will be a future of like unified space flight. Obviously, that never happened, but this is one of the things that were talked about in 1963 to get the space plane going. They believed the space plane from our Nazi friend Werner von Braun was the way to go. A lot of astronauts don't like that today, of course, but NASA recommended to the nation and the world in 1964-ish, increase the utilization of space capabilities for the service of man through an expanded space application program that the entire world can contribute to. You suddenly started seeing all those concept arts pop up that you just saw a second ago. They went crazy. They believed they would increase together universally the knowledge of the universe by conducting a continued strong program of lunar and planetary exploration, astronomy, physics, and Earth-like sciences. How did it work out for them when it came to their working together? I feel like it's okay. I wonder if the politicians and military leaders heard these claims at the time. I think they did, in fact, and they used that opportunity to spy on each other. In this goal, NASA announced 3 phases. They felt that they could come together with the world, and it didn't work out too good for them. But they wanted a manned exploration mission in 1960 to 64. The entire concept was, even though we had plenty of drones back then, remote control flight, long distance remote control, really long distance. Of course, we had already launched stuff in space. We still wanted a manned fighter, a piloted space fighter, and so did the Russians. We're going to get into that in a second. But in 1964, we announced we wanted a manned exploration of these spacecraft, and so we could go to the moon and walk on it, this, that, and the other thing, and we could come back to Earth relatively easily and do this on repeat easily. That all went away, of course. But that's one of 3. I said there was 3. Initially, the activity should concentrate upon dual theme of exploitation, existing capabilities, things that they already discovered together between space programs. Second, an operational phase in which new capability, new systems would be tested together to get to the Earth, the moon. Suddenly, the relationship between the old Soviet Ruskies went a little vodka, if you will, kiss your dog, and they suddenly went a little awry. It didn't work out too well for them. But the Soviets at the same time said, oh, no. You want to talk some stuff? We've got what's called the 50-50 spiral program going on. And in 1960, the combination of aerospace systems between 60 and 65, rather, began a project which approved laying on an ambitious work plan leading into operations of a regular Earth orbit, Earth reusable transportation system by the mid 60s. It ended up taking to the mid 70s to really get something going. But go ahead to actually proceed with the development of the manned orbital vehicle was given the 26th June 1966. Lazino Lazinski was selected as project manager, and allegedly, once again, it never flew. But the spiral system consisted of 3 main components: the GSR reusable hypersonic air-breathing launch aircraft, the RB expandable 2-stage rocket. I'm not even showing you the photos as I'm saying this. I feel stupid. I apologize. Give me 1 second. Take a look at this bad Larry, and you tell me if this looks familiar at all. You tell me if this looks familiar. If you know a thing or two about the history of space flight, how many ufologists have said that we don't do these types of things? This is a Russian spacecraft design from 1960. Anyways, so this they did a whole bunch of things with the spiral series and the orbital fighter series, because that's exactly what this was, one of the many orbital fighters they came up with. Of course, this is just a conceptual design. It was one of many they designed to actually put in place, including a drone. But we don't like to talk about drones because drones are new. But in 1967, subsonic test flight, and then 1977 alleged the first piloted orbital flight of a complete system worked and took place, although that's not listed. The Spiral was conceived as an orbital fighter capable of active maneuvering and attacking targets in space, on the ground, and far away from space, because the idea at the time was, let's get satellites really far away from Earth and in like LEO GEO, I don't know, GEO, and stop them from interacting. But it also was an awesome reconnaissance vehicle and carried a revolutionary photo system, which was 0.75-1 meter in a radar payload to conduct on-demand spy missions of Earth's surface from very high up directionally. The bomber version would be equipped to orbit to surface missiles, which was very scary. 1960, you have our adversary, who we want to work with, is now figuring a way to bomb us at any time, any place around the world. This was kept relatively quiet because all we knew was that they were developing weapons that could reach us. That's how they described it. And they were going to put those weapons in Cuba, which was right next to us. Meanwhile, the capability to do this was invented in the 30s. For all three applications, the Spiral would have to compete in performance with unmanned military satellites. Something else was being developed at the time. What was cheaper? At the time, the jury was still out on which vehicle would be the better suited job, but everyone agreed within this KGB office that the 50-50 Spiral system would be one of the best. And they continued to pursue it. What is happening right now? I'm sorry, I can't stop. God, I apologize. The Design Bureau formed something called Branch 2, which later became MKB Raduga, which is now a Russian aerospace company, yada, yada, yada. But if you look at their history, one of their first jobs was to come up with ways to develop space plane fighters, which they did. Then essentially you had the competition blow up now between the U.S. at that point. Excuse me, sorry. The U.S. and the Soviets went dark, something which a lot of aviation historians within ufology would like to pretend that is a sign that there was no testing happening. Well, since we don't have a ton of time left, let's just quickly look at something I've had to show multiple times in the show before, but it's out there for you to see. Let's look at the dates together because we're all big boys and girls and we're going to figure this one out. Ready? Here we go. Let's look at this picture. What does this say here? This says AF FDL lifting body hypersonic shapes of the U.S. Air Force from 1956. That's 1 year after that video for Varner Brown was released. This is a guy that's holding a toy talking about generations later we'll achieve this. This is 1956 to 1966 from just the Air Force. We're not talking about the Navy. We're not talking about the CIA. We're not talking about the world's wealthiest people. We're not talking about foreign space agencies. We're not talking about our adversaries. We're not talking about espionage cases. We're talking simply about the U.S. Air Force, 1956, 1 year after that Werner von Braun video of the alleged future of humankind and space traveling. Remember, because he was talking in 1955 then, right? And Sanger, Eugene Sanger's design was in 1934. 21 to 20 years there. And then this picture right here of the lifting bodies and shapes is from, of course, 56, whatever. But there's multiple ones on them. The dinosaurs on there, you know. There is they've just been doing forever. You know, the concept of we can't go fast is a very tricky thing. Notice they're also very different here, right? A lot of them are sharp. Just to quickly go over why some of these space planes, because a lot of these are hypersonic lifting bodies, as in they drop them off from an aircraft and get them going really quick, horizontally speaking, but up there and landing flapless. It seems like a bunch of observables could be spotted on here, right? No flaps, no wings. leaving funny signatures behind, can go from parked in orbit, very high up, to in some of these extremely fast speeds. As you probably know, re-entry speed is very quick, and since the Nazis achieved it with simply a falling rocket and its telemetry information's reading back to them, and they're going, holy cow, look how fast we got this thing going, and now let's control it next time. Holy cow, that was in World War II. Remember, they had the first drone war. They attacked London and stuff with drones all over the place. They launched drones all throughout the air, and they were so new. They were shit. Crap. Sorry. Anyways. Yeah, so as you see here, this is not something new. It's all a big ruse. We can't use the absence of evidence as evidence of absence, but it's all a big ruse when the military or military people join ufology and try to tell you that we can't do this. No one can do this. For God's sakes, Lou Elizondo was a member of To the Stars Academy with DeLong and Putoff and all these guys. This dude was offering up investors a chance at an aircraft that could fly around the planet in 2 hours. The only aircraft I know of that can do anything even remotely like that is these ones, because they've already proven it over and over again. Heck, November of 2004, what was being tested right there in the area where our lovely friends from the Navy had their encounter? The fastest unmanned aerial vehicle that's ever flown in history was tested November 2004, right there, and it looked just like one of these things. All these years later, these are things that we already came up with. But it's not. I'm not over here with this whole, the idea of it. As I said, the Chinese are being propped up as some sort of reason to dust off our old toys that we never got to use on the old vodka drunks. And so we see pictures like this from China coming out, and the U.S. news will blast it all over the place, being like, they're going to get us. This is a little concept art from China that has come out recently. And as you see, there's I'm going to give it a second until it pops up. Sorry there, everyone. 1 second. This picture of the Chinese launched vehicle is a give me 1 second, guys. Racehorse. This is the newest design from China that's being used as a threat. You have DARPA representatives, people from Harvard, people from the defense, from the military complex, are telling you how China's dangerous new capabilities. How could China launch something off a hypersonic vehicle? This is crazy. First off, how do they even get hypersonic vehicles? China can launch a drone that can stay in the air for years? Yeah, well, so can we. We just watched it land. It's called the X-37B. That's a drone. That's a plane. That stays up in the air as long as you want it to, because it leaves the air. That's the whole point we're going here. You can stay up there quite a long time. Anyways, this is the big new threat. As you just saw, a whole bunch of photos. Sorry, everyone on the audio side who didn't get to see this episode on the YouTube. This is a very photo-intensive episode. But we're seeing what looks exactly like the X-37B being carried around in a taxi state in an animation from China. But again, it's nothing new. This is just early 1960s technology. China just came up with a space race. It just joined the space race a few years ago. They've made amazing breakthroughs, and some would say, like I said multiple times, that they've done better than we have in some degree, but it's not new. Quickly, real fast here. Some of the other designs from way back in the day, of course, the Russians did it. Here is one design. Looks a heck of a lot like a D-21 drone that were launching off the back of B-2 Spirits or Ox carts. Here is a Kometa from Russia in 1961. This thing right here was one of their first orbital space plane fighters. Okay, in 61 this was designed. It's fast, and guess what? It flew down to the ground just like Werner von Braun described. So just 6 years after that video, the Russians, the former Nazi party, that now became part of American power class. It was and the Americans and others, the Brits, had all their designs and hopes on these things. This is just another example, one from back in '61, I believe it is. And last couple ones before we get out of here. Let's see, just for the future real fast. So you've seen the past, you've seen what we got going on now. We're working on the space plane shuttle development. Here is Virgin Galactic, excuse me. This is a 1980s design. You've probably seen it. A lot of people want their money back because they bought tickets for this thing, then they watched a bunch blow up on TV and scared the crap out of them. This is one going to space. Now, these people have made posts. This is what's going to be taking us to Mars. This is what's going to be taking us to the moon. This is what's going to be taking us. Virgin Galactic just purchased a bunch of launch rights to put satellites around Mars because they think they're going there relatively soon. But this is one of them you see right now. This is a space plane. It looks remarkable. One of the things I think is interesting about this design or other designs that look like this from the side, other than it's very kind of shuttle-like with weird wings, is that this is a UFO story from Victor 5 astronaut Afasanov. I can't remember his name there. I always forget. Sorry, Nikes. His name is Victor Afanasyev. I can't say his name right. Afanasyev. But he has been on multiple UFO shows later on in life. But one of the things he suggested was, or he said was, hey, we were followed by something in the 70s, 1979. Okay, so 79 now. Think of that date. We got Eugene Sanger, 1934. We have Werner von Braun at Paperclip and all of the other spacecraft, of course, that we've already developed in the U.S. when he gets there in their drive. By 1979, cosmonaut Victor Offen, whatever the hell his name is, says this thing followed him through space. Now, again, they all went black around the same time. They all stopped talking about this the same time. And in my opinion, it's because they made achievements and they made a mutual agreement to not throw each other under the bus. This followed the astronaut through space. Look at the side mirrors on the side windows, which is 1952 or something. They're talking about needing to place where the pilots sit because the heat shielding on this thing is too long. Look at the wing design, the long body, the cylindrical shape with clearly a jet / or missile body on it. It's look at the damn wings on it. Look at the new drones we have today. Look at the very animal-like design of the front of it, and also look how similar it looks to the Roswell design craft that allegedly crashed there. Go to the Roswell Museum. The fact of the matter is, the people that push the idea the most that we haven't been doing these things, well, they kind of rely on the Wikipedia. These things didn't fly. We canceled these programs. We stopped doing this then. Whatever the hell the excuse is, I have to say to you, I'm not sure that's a safe bet. You know, just like the airship movement from the 1800s, which I constantly refer to, ask yourself, why is it that the world's wealthiest used them for like 30 years before then? And suddenly it was like, we have blimps, everyone, and we use them for the military and they're normal now. Like the same concept was if you found out that you didn't have to fly a prop plane like Amelia Earhart and crash into the goddamn ocean, and you could fly around space relatively quickly, easily, probably irradiate the crap out of yourself before we knew any of that stuff. But you think that you're going to spend your money on a prop plane with consistent failure? I mean, this isn't a crazy suggestion that people with money want the best stuff. Are you kidding me? Do you think that your Honda Civic is the Rubicon of vehicle design? Do you think a billionaire drives around in a Honda Civic and says, I love this. This is an awesome... No! This is the same concept is happening today. And not to suggest that NASA is a bunch of liars, but you have to understand as well that even NASA sometimes can't even answer truthfully, and they're not doing it purposely to cover something up. They don't even know. The deep connection between our military complex, our IC, as in our intelligence and resource gathering abilities for the CIA and others, are deeply intertwined with NASA launches. We had to get into space somehow. And until we started coming up with other space agencies, the Air Force Space Command, all this stuff, guess what? Vandenberg, all stuff, but we didn't have the ability to do that. We didn't have the ability to be independent of them. So for a long time, we said we were doing one thing, but we did the other. And that was well into early shuttle design. That was like the heyday of it. I mean, we have people arguing today if transmedian is a new idea and stuff, or seaplanes is a freaking new idea. Seaplane. I mean, or drones are new. So all this is part of the UFO story because of the same exact time we started deciding that our space capabilities was NASA. And isn't it easy to show how bad and slow and stupid humans are when the best of the best is a multi-failed attempt rocket they spent billions of dollars. Aha, look how bad we are. Clearly we can't do what these aliens have done. I put it to you, we're doing it. We're doing it all the time. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this was one weird episode. We'll talk about it more rationally in the future. Again, space planes have been around for a long time. There's a ton of different versions. Many of them have made it into testing off the bench, real life craft. Do me a favor. Try to look for things how they actually are versus how they appear to be. Okay? They appear to be humans are dumb, aliens are smart, we can't do it, they can. What they really are is we are one impressive, crazy little critter. Please, Recon, keep it weird and keep your third eye peeled. Give a thumbs up to the NX Network and do me a massive favor. Stick around. Stay tuned for Jimmy Church up next, right here on the X.